good day. I think any government takes the health of our people very seriously, and to secure it, you have to develop some strategies. Today, I'm privileged to host former minister at the Office of the Vice President, Honorable Sylvia Chalikosa. Honorable Sylvia Chalikosa, welcome to today's conversation.
Thank you very much, and hello, listeners.
How have you been, and Happy New Year?
Well, it has been a very good year in the past, and God has graciously allowed us to see 2024.
Yes.
So we move on and see what life has in store for us.
Yeah. Many people will be wondering who Sylvia Chalikosa is. Just briefly tell me, especially your political journey.
Yes, Sylvia Chalikosa is a very quiet politician, not very loud. But my political journey started in 2001 when Patriotic Front was established by the late Michael Chilufya-Sata. I think a few people know that I am his niece, but I'm one of those family members that supported the cause.
Politically.
Yes, and I've been there from the beginning. So for me, it wasn't a chosen path to become a politician. I think President Michael Sata just came to me and said, "Sylvia, you're standing in Munadi." And so I said, what do I know about politics?
About politics and about Munadi.
Yes, and, but all the same, I took up the challenge because at the time I lived in Avondale, so I was living within the constituency. And I started now, working together with my partner on how we were going to market Patriotic Front. Yeah. We knew that we were not going to win. Because it was
only about 28, 29 days.
It was
28, 29 days old.
Established in October, and we were going for elections like a month later or something like that, a few days into the month. And it was very exciting. It was territory that I had not charted before. But because he gave me the confidence to say, "You are standing," I just said, let me do what I can, not to let him down. And I'm very proud to say that I'm on record in the history books as having scored 1,133 votes.
No, at the time in 2001, I think the MMD was the strongest party.
Very strong.
But they were being challenged by new parties such as the FDD and Heritage Party.
Definitely. In fact,
and UPND itself, which was participating in elections for the first time.
Yes. In fact, at that time, the person who won was FDD President Nawakwi. She had something like 12,000 votes or something, and then followed by Patrick Chisanga, UPND, who had about 10,000. So I was way below, but I was very proud of myself. And that's how I started, you know. But then 10 years later, when the PF won elections and
in 2011.
in 2011, and became the ruling party, I was still not really politically in the mainstream politics. I was assigned to be Deputy High Commissioner in Canada. I served there for 3 years before I was moved to Namibia as High Commissioner. And then while I was there, I wanted to join the mainstream politics. And so I decided to resign, which many people thought I was mad. How do you resign a diplomatic post to go into politics?
Especially that of head of mission as a high commissioner.
Yes. But I think I've always been a person who loves being in my country, Zambia, regardless of where I've been. I've been exposed to many countries. I'm widely traveled, but I always miss home. And so when I resigned in February 2016, I came home, and in April we went through the adoption process. I was adopted for Member of Parliament in Mpika Central. And I served my 5 years as Member of Parliament for Mpika Central. And I was graciously appointed by President Edgar Lungu to serve as the first female minister in the office of the Vice President, which I enjoyed immensely, because that for me was like a training ground into public service. It was the first time I was engaged in public service. And then later I moved on to Ministry of Works and Supply. So that, in short, is my political journey. And then come 2021, I was not adopted, but my experience was such that even though PF lost, I still have the interests of the party at heart, and I've continued.
You can speak for many senior people,
Yes.
especially ministers like yourself. You're a very effective minister. I think at Office of the Vice President, DMMU, and the work you did, and then at Works and Supply.
Yeah.
Then you were not adopted. I remember ministers like Honorable Vincent Mwale, Walia Chungu from Northern Province, and other ministers. In your particulars, how did you take that? How come you remained loyal to the PF?
Well, it was very, very disappointing. I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it. But then there were a lot of issues at play internally. So when, you are not being supported into a particular role, I don't think it's worth it fighting or going independent. You pave way for other players, but still offer your service in a different portfolio.
Okay.
So for
How come you
me,
didn't resign? How come you didn't leave the party?
There's no way. I think I'm PF by blood. I'm a true green, and I will always be.
Yeah, I can imagine from 2001,
Yes.
and you're one of those that stood
Yeah.
in 2001 when the party was just less than 2 months old. And
Yes.
you and actually President Edgar Lungu
Yes.
stood in Chawama.
Yes, he stood in Chawama, I stood in Munali, and the other, Elizabeth Piri, stood in that time it was Eastern Province. Is it
Milanzi.
Milanzi. Then my friend later, Kukati Bernadette, stood in Chipangali. I think at that time they were fighting for the seat with Levi Ngoma, I think, that time, and it's been an interesting journey, actually, very full of ups and downs, but mostly public service for me was the real thing, never mind anything else, to serve. Yes, that was the motivation.
We have cholera outbreak, and that's why we thought of you, that you should come and have a conversation with Zambians and give us some insights. We have the worst cholera outbreak since 1991. We've had outbreaks, but to the extent and the loss of lives, I think it's only comparable to 1991. I think as of today, we've lost over 320 lives.
Yeah.
How has this happened? I'm aware that the Patriotic Front had some good strategy. Because as a diplomat, I remember that Zambia moved the motion at the United Nations to have, the world end cholera by 2030. And that motion was moved by Zambia. Maybe let's begin the journey. Give us insights. Because as a minister in the Office of the Vice President, and DMMU for disasters is under you, and you collaborate very closely with Ministry of Health and related ministry to the issues of health and security in light of disasters that occur.
Yeah, well, it came out as a result of a cabinet meeting to address the issue of cholera, and it was agreed that we would have a multi-sectoral approach, meaning that it was not just a health issue. It had to do with hygiene, water and sanitation. So we worked very closely with the Ministry of Water, and incidentally, this ministry was created in 2016 specifically to look at issues of water
and sanitation.
And sanitation, the management of that, while the Ministry of Local Government intensified the waste management, and I think we did a law on Solid Waste Management Act of 2018. So we paid a lot of attention to commit ourselves to ending cholera by the year 2025. I know globally it's 2030.
By 2030,
yeah. But in Zambia, we were ambitious enough to say that we would, eliminate cholera, at least reduce the fatality and morbidity rates, caused by cholera. And, to implement that, we worked with other stakeholders to come up with a national cholera elimination plan. And in that plan, we had programs and activities of how we were going to work towards the elimination of the same. It involved many other stakeholders. And partly that's the reason why, as Patriotic Front, we feel that we can still play a role as an organization and, as individuals, as Zambian citizens who care about this. So we launched the National Elimination Cholera Plan in Geneva, myself and Dr. Chalikosa. We attended the 71st World Health Assembly, where cholera was an issue, and it was discussed amongst other issues. And it was there that we launched the plan itself. And in it, I think I would like people who have access to the document to read it. It outlines what the activities we would be able to do as government, as stakeholders, as partners, and different sectors coming together to address this issue.
I was looking at this, the Zambia multi-sectoral cholera elimination plan 2019 to 2025. It's quite a very comprehensive document. First, it catalogues cholera and the situation in Zambia, and then the plan to end cholera, and then the elimination roadmap by 2025. Just begin to speak to this document, because it's quite comprehensive.
The document itself, was put together by experts. We as policy holders would just give a directive of saying we have to end cholera. How it's done is now the issue relegated to the experts. So the local experts in the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Local Government, Ministry of Water and Sanitation came together and put up strategies, including the DMMU. So we all know that cholera is caused by ingestion of contaminated water and food. And there are technical terms in there, which the experts use. But for a lay person, what is of great importance is to identify the epicenters or the hotspots, as they're referred to in the document, where the source of cholera, starts. And in that program, we had started looking at the issue of infrastructure in terms of access to safe and clean water, and in terms of solid waste management. I think people will remember how we engaged even the Zambia Army, the defense forces, to help us clean up the CBD and go into the townships, like Matero, Chilenje, everywhere where we had identified cholera as being a source area. And I think the responsibility is on all of us to start from, at household level, practice hygiene in the home. Wash your hands before you eat, keep your surroundings clean. And then when you get out of your house, it becomes a bit of an issue when you have unplanned settlements. So even as people are acquiring plots and wanting to build, it should be in the back of our mind that if we put toilets facing shallow wells, what will the outcome be? Because you have things like flooding, which help spread the bacteria that causes cholera. So all these things were identified, and we started cataloging them of who will be responsible for looking at that. We needed to do a lot of sensitization. I think to date, people still remember the sensitization that we did as the Patriotic Front government. And we worked very well because it was not politicized. We invited people to come, different stakeholders, people with trucks, transporters, to help us transport supplies, people with medicines, people with water tanks. We had to put or install water tanks for access to clean water in the townships. So we believe that if we had continued with this plan, by now we should not be having, cholera outbreak to the level that it is today, because this was a solid plan.
Did your plan work? Because the last outbreak was in 2018.
Yes,
we didn't have outbreak in 2019, 2020, 2021, even 2022. The outbreak only came in 2023. What would you attribute this to?
I would attribute it to the strict commitment and following of the same plan. Each ministry was charged with making sure that, at whatever time, whether it's the rainy season or the dry season, because climate change also has effects, flooding, drought. When you're in drought, you don't have access to clean water. It's a risk. When you have flooding because of excessive rains, it's also a risk. It did work because everybody was charged, especially with the Ministry of Water and Sanitation. It was incumbent upon them to make sure that we didn't get to a situation where now we needed to treat people who have, gotten contaminated with cholera. So yes, it worked because everybody was committed. The head of the permanent secretaries in the ministries were pushing the agenda to make sure that the plan was followed to the book. And there was a lot of constant sensitization, like I said earlier, so that people were alert and they knew what to do. There was cleaning. We had cleaning sessions through the Ministry of Local Government where every month we had to do cleanups. And we encouraged everyone, including the ministries. All the ministerial workers would have a cleaning day where they would clean all the public offices. It just became a way of life to the extent that even when the COVID-19 set in, we had already established a way of life and we just needed to intensify the hygiene part. Yes.
The Zambia Clean campaign was also a result of this plan?
Yeah, well, the Zambia Clean campaign was there before, except that in Zambia we have a tendency of, not following up with programs that are started, which are for the good of everybody. We like to say, because Patriotic Front did this, we're not going to do it, and you start something else. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. The Keep Zambia Clean campaign was started by the MMD. We simply carried it forward. It had died somewhere along the way, but we revived it, and it helped a lot, so it's not a new thing. I know that in the UPND, they like saying for the first time, we're having this for the first time. But in terms of, trying to clean up the CBD, the Patriotic Front did a lot. And I think the Zambian people appreciated whatever the government did.
We like blaming vendors or shallow wells, and we just want vendors removed. We want shallow wells buried. Is that the right approach?
I would say that if you are abrupt and you don't provide alternative means, because street vending is a source of income for many of our citizens, who are hand-to-mouth are in a hand-to-mouth situation where they do not buy food and stock it. Every day they have to look at what are they going to do to earn some money to buy food for the family. So in our case, we tried to offer alternative trading places. And the idea was that we would service these trading places. By now, we should have had toilets and public toilets, that are improved, marketplaces with the toilet facilities and, sanitation everywhere. I think the markets that we were building, which should have finished by now, had those facilities, and we're going to accommodate a large part of street vendors, such that we reduce the street vending on the streets. And the issue was always there are no toilets on the street, so how do people, help themselves? How do they wash their hands? And
we had a sad case of someone who was identified as a European tourist last week, and he seemed to have gotten cholera. He was a cholera suspect, and he couldn't find a public toilet. and he just ended up helping himself outside the post office. And then there was a specter, because you can't help him, and you need experts to come and pick him up and then take him to a center. The lack of toilets in Lusaka is appalling. In fact, even respected institutions like the University of Zambia, you find that their toilets, most of their toilets are disused, maybe because of the huge population, and they flock, say, to East Park or Arcades to use the facilities there. For town, there are few public toilets and you pay for them, but they are also just not adequate.
Not only are they inadequate, but also when you make fee-paying toilets, you are restricting access. I think what we need to do is look at this issue seriously. The population has grown. So even the number of public toilets that we have are not enough. Private sector should come in. I think there was even a program where a lot of people went to the city council to offer partnerships with solid waste management and these things of creating energy using human waste and all that. We need the political will to allow people who come with good ideas to
implement them.
To implement them. You accept them and you get these ideas implemented. For as long as we're going to be looking at the faces of people who bring these brilliant ideas as, that person is patriotic front, we can't entertain them. It's a detriment to the country because it's not promoting economic activity. And what if the people with the ideas are PF, You need the economic activities for you to achieve your GDP growth and whatever it is that you want to talk about and say that Zambia is developing.
On the issue of looking at people that can help you, leads me to this question. The way government has handled this cholera outbreak is, short of the word incompetent. First of all, the outbreak occurred in October 2023. We're lucky the onset of the rains took long and just came in December, and immediately the cholera outbreak just flared up, and the response was poor. The president was on holiday, showing us cattle, vaccinating cattle, while people were dying. Up to 20, 25 a day. We saw ministers with selfies in Dubai. DMMU coordinator was in Dubai. Yet cholera outbreak was raging. And when Zambians hear that there's actually a strategic plan to end cholera by 2025, well thought out document, adopted even by other countries, did they abandon this plan? Do you feel that they abandoned the plan? Are they trying to reinvent the wheel, maybe come up with their own fresh plans and abandon this plan?
It looks like this plan is not being followed to the book. I'm not too sure if they're looking at it as a PF document. It's a national policy. It's a national document, meaning it can be used by anybody, because it's government that's going to implement through the civil service.
The lack of awareness on ZMBC. It's only now that you are seeing most adverts. And the fight didn't seem out-sectoral. You saw Honorable Sylvia Masebo cleaning the wards, cleaning the drainages, and being at the National Cholera Center at Hero Stadium. You didn't feel this was multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholder process. It appeared haphazard, like we've just been gripped by this disaster and we didn't know how to respond. What is your assessment of their response?
Well, my assessment is that it's being treated like a window dressing kind of activity where you just put on your gumboots and overalls and take a picture. There's no seriousness being shown that you are really, really addressing the issue. When we were dealing with this cholera outbreak, we were like inspecting the hotspots. We were going to visit the clinics and seeing the people who were affected and trying to connect the illness with ordinary people to ensure that they don't end up like those who had actually contracted the disease. You know, the issue of flies, you know, flies will sit on vomit or excreta of, you know, a person who is affected and then sit on food, and that's how you consume that food and also contract the disease. I think there's lack of adequate sensitization to the people. Though they've been there, they've experienced it, they know what it is, but it's like it's being downplayed. You know, to have over 300 people by the 11th of January dead, about 300 people, so at the rate of 4% of admissions or, you know, identified cases. I think in our case we had a fatality rate of about 1.8%. You know, this is like double, you know, but in a space of 3-4 years or whatever it is. And to me, the government has been responsive. You know, they could have taken a preventive approach, you know, paid more attention to the risk, especially with DMMU, because they have all the documents, they have all the plans in place. All you needed to do was just make reference to whatever documentation is available. This is a global issue. It's not just a Zambian issue. Wherever you have this bacteria, because of lack of access to safe water, you will get, you know, the pandemic or epidemic if it's national, pandemic if it's global. And, you know, in Zambia, when the Patriotic Front was embarking on infrastructure, you know, building hospitals and whatever, that infrastructure development program for the PF is something that should be ongoing. Let's take it now to public facilities, toilets, accessible to everyone. All you need is someone to have cleaning detergents and whatever. Invite everyone on board, including those who offer themselves to come and help, so that you're keeping your premises clean, your surroundings clean, and you avoid this bacteria spreading, especially through flooding and things like that.
The pictures from the National Cholera Treatment Center at Heroes Stadium are very distressing.
Yeah.
The wooden makeshift beds and the drip stands and the entire environment, in fact, looks like an infectious place. It is quite distressing to see those pictures. The president was asked what he thinks people need to do. He answered in two ways. Number one, he says people should go back to the village. When he was coming out, one brave journalist asked the president, Mr. President, there is no water in the National Treatment Center. And you know, water is what will keep the cholera bacteria where? If the cleaning out, do you clean? And the president just says, no. We know this spirit is spirit of witchcraft. The opposition, you know, literally he called us names. We are mambas, we are black mambas, and that we are witches. To a sensible question, Mr. President, there is no water in the treatment center. And you know, these are patients who are vomiting every other minute because it's cholera.
Yeah, you need to clean up.
Do you think the opposition have been malicious in trying to remind government to save lives of our people?
I think to begin with, our head of state must really take this fight as non-personal, you know. Yes, we're all fighting for power. We want to be in the ruling, you know, of the country, in the ruling position of the country. But I think at the level where the head of state will start politicizing this, you know, epidemic, it's most unfortunate. To begin with, it's this cholera. It's not something which UPND should proudly own, like it's an asset. Only we should be able to deal with it. Nobody else. It's embarrassing. It's degrading. It's really, really nothing to be proud of. So anybody who is coming on board to offer help, they should embrace them, and forget about the political fights. We know that it's the UPND that's ruling, and we know that, the president is President Hakainde Hichilema, but the way he is handling this issue, it lacks seriousness, it lacks commitment, together with the cabinet. I mean, I heard that they were going to have a cabinet meeting to discuss cholera today, from October. What's been going on?
Yeah.
When we had to deal with this cholera outbreak, none of us went on leave. We were working weekends, working into the late hours of the night. And you can prove it, because that's what we did. We were planning. We had everyday meetings at the Ministry of Health, where we were having daily reports. All of us, policy heads, technocrats, other stakeholders, we were receiving donations and things like that. And you could see the seriousness attached to the fight against cholera, or the elimination of cholera. And then to tell people to go back to the village, I mean, you're telling people who are coming from hotspots to go to the village, probably just transporting the bacteria.
They'll be carriers of it.
Exactly. So I don't think that's a very wise, counsel. And I don't think he said it with the seriousness that it deserves. He should have given more serious, advice, because that just shows that you are being petty. You're not taking this thing with the seriousness that it deserves. Why would you want to go to the village anyway? Are you going to the village to run away from cholera? Supposing your means of living is here in the city, what are you going to do in the village when you get there? There are so many issues attached to fighting this scourge, this disease. It's the same as COVID. When we were fighting COVID-19, each region had to be set up as a COVID, center, where if anybody contracted the disease, they had to be dealt with there in that area, not to be transported to another area. So we set up all these treatment centers, and that's what I would expect the UPND
So when we had the outbreak in 2018, did you set up the stadium as a national cholera center?
Yes, we did that eventually, but we had smaller centers in the epicenters, where the disease was, to avoid the spread. Eventually, when the numbers grew, but they didn't grow to the level where they are now, we did set up Heroes Stadium. And there were a few cases, not too many. That was to help with decongesting the smaller cholera centers. Yes. And we visited the Heroes Stadium, and the setting up there was just to, supplement what was already existing. Yes, we did.
What do you think this government should do? Because we are still in the midst of this outbreak, and I think the only time we've seen numbers recede is just on Friday. But we don't know, with the current trends that have taken place and the rate of infection, we don't know how the numbers will be, especially to the fatalities and more cases. What should be done?
I think that to begin with, there should be an appeal for help. I understand that they want to call this an emergency, declare it an emergency, probably through cabinet meeting, but it has been an emergency from the time it broke out.
In October.
Yes, in October. And there should be an appeal for all stakeholders to come in and do their part in terms of assisting to address this issue. And for a political party to which I belong, the Patriotic Front, offering to help, and then being dismissed or refusing the help or blocking us from doing an activity, I think that's being petty, really. True. It is. Because we have been there, we have experienced it, we have some experience on how you can curb the scourge, so why not listen to us? After all, we are offering the alternative,
Yes.
And in offering that alternative, we are being helpful to the incumbent government. And if I were them, I would take tips and say, okay, let's work together over this. It's non-partisan. It affects everybody in the country. So let's work together to curb it. And that way you have a national approach, and a national image of saying Zambia is dealing with this in this particular way.
Not UPND.
Not UPND.
It's not about taking glory.
No, it's not about taking glory. And I think that's where the current government is missing it. If you remember, I said it's not something that you should own and say, you know, by UPND are dealing with it, so the rest of you stay out of it. No.
And I was surprised that stakeholders were very slow to come on board. I now saw the donations from Trade Kings and I think chlorine from Farmanova. The stakeholders, in your case in 2018, both for cholera and COVID, you literally had to have a press conference for them because there were so many stakeholders that were willing to help. Why do you think stakeholders have stayed behind or are not quick to come on board?
First of all, the publicity. I don't know whether the issue is to conceal what's happening, you know, and making this look or appear to be less than what it is, you know. So there isn't enough publicity. You know, when we were dealing with the issue, we had pamphlets, we had flyers, we had every clinic undertaking a sensitization activity. I remember when I went to my constituency, all the members of parliament were into the game. All of us had to collect posters from the Ministry of Health to go and distribute in our constituencies. We worked with the district health boards at the time. And everybody was just willing to come on board. But for some reason, with this outbreak, people are sort of like staying back, and the attitude of the government is not helping matters where you want to choose who to work with. Everybody must come on board. It's not a political, you know, or a by-election where you want to win, you know, as the case has been. And you know, forget all the political fights that we have. This is a national issue. It affects us.
Every life matters.
Yes, every life matters, and all of us as citizens first before we are members of political parties. So really, what needs to be done is to continue with the documents, the plans.
Is there? The details are there.
Yes, the details are there. Just continue with them. If it means building more public facilities for people to use, let's do that, you know. Otherwise, if we continue with just fighting and trying to appear.
And you said something from October last year when cholera was categorized as an outbreak. I think there should have been SI to limit gatherings. There should have been huge public awareness. We are into over 320 people have died. And now that's the time they're even talking about the SI.
Yeah, SI.
Let's in the game.
They are planning to issue an SI. I don't know. I think they're just not being serious, you know. You don't need... And by the way, cholera is treatable. It's preventable, you know. It's not a death sentence when you have cholera. So you can avoid all these deaths that, you know, the country is experiencing. So...
In your strategy, did you have the issue of vaccine? Because vaccines is usually a contested issue.
Yes, we did. In fact, we were promoting the vaccine to be done to children in schools. As ministers, I remember Minister of Health, Local Government, Water, myself as Minister OVP, we went around the schools to witness, you know, children being vaccinated. And it's not the first time that it's happening. I understand that now they're expecting 1.4 million doses. It hasn't arrived yet. And the reason that has even gotten to a stage where you need the vaccine is because of the uncontrollable state it has reached. DMMU is there to deal with emergencies. So if the head is not proactive, you know, then everybody else will relax. They will take it that it's not as serious, but it is. So I think all the office holders must be in the forefront of addressing this issue. And using the documents, the activities that need to be taken are there, clearly outlined.
Yes. And I saw that even the financing part of it was also outlined. Okay, just moving away, coming to the politics. You said you're a soft politician, but I'll take advantage of your presence, especially as a female leader. this government, I think, has very few ministers. One of the governments that has had very few ministers. And this election again produced far less women in parliament across the parties. Yeah. What do you think political parties are not doing? And then also we move to President Hakainde Hichilema, who still has some MPs who are just in the backbenchers, but they are women.
I think Zambia is still a man's world. You know, women still have to do a lot to be recognized and to be appreciated in terms of politics and holding political positions. Being a board member of the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue, it's an issue we have been trying to promote for political parties to deliberately incorporate women, you know, as a quota of holding positions in political parties. And in the Patriotic Front, we have proved it, and we have done it before, where we have the zebra system, where if the head is male, the deputy must be female. It's easier to follow a rule like that to help with improving on the numbers.
Meeting gender parity.
Gender parity, yes. Improving the numbers in terms of gender equality. And really, it's the head of these institutions who should be in the forefront, making sure that women occupy, if not 30%, at least 50%, or if not 50%, at least 30%, because that is what the SADC protocol is now, 50%. So the incumbent president, I think also with political parties in general, we all need to look at that and say, we have women, how best can we use them?
Are there times you felt excluded or that your decisions were not taken seriously because you were a woman leader?
In my political party, I think the leadership appreciates women. It does appreciate women, and we have tried to put women in leadership positions. We can do better, but I think we've done much, much better than the UPND and other parties. The female-led political parties, they've done it. The head is a woman, and we don't know who the vices are, but at least we can see that women are trying to be head of institutions as political parties. So in my case, personally, I think my advice has been appreciated, and I think to be given a position at ministerial level, gave me the privilege to serve and show what a woman can do. A woman can do as well, if not better than the male counterpart.
Men have egos.
Yeah, they have egos, and that ego is...
One woman wrote an opinion on the war on Ukraine and Russia, and said, if the two were female leaders, there'll be no war between Russia and Ukraine. So women, you really are an asset.
Yes.
Sometimes you help in removing the personal egos that men bring to the tables, because men want to be macho, want to be controlling, want to appear like their bosses, even when sometimes they're blank.
Yeah, as women, we also have that natural instinct where you want to be motherly. It just comes, it's natural, you know. And so you want to avoid conflict, so dialogue should never be thrown out of the window. It's something that we need to make more use of. So with political parties, I think the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue is underutilized.
Okay.
Because this is where President HH and other political heads of political parties should come together and discuss. We're not saying that when you come around the table, you throw away your political ambitions. No. Certain things
Speak to that institution. It seems to have been ignored.
It has been ignored.
Political parties appear to be existing outside a formal framework that has been properly established and funded, and seems to have lost relevance. Just speak to it so that our viewers can learn that there is this organization that's supposed to bring all political parties together. Because then it also acts to remove conflict and also to make political parties focus more on national development than their differences.
Yeah, the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue operates on a trust deed. So it's an institution that is supposed to be a stage for political players to come and discuss cross-party issues, issues that are non-partisan. And we know that political parties are in competition for political power. So when you come to this Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue, for instance, this issue of cholera, that could have been a platform where political heads would have come and say, okay, as political parties, what shall we do to help with this situation?
Because we're stakeholders.
We are stakeholders, you know, and it has been
ignored. You are not witches and black members.
No, we're definitely not that. And calling people names isn't helpful at all. You know, you can't have one set of people calling others names and not getting arrested, and then the other set, if they say anything near, you know, name calling, they get arrested and convicted and jailed, you know. It's just not acceptable. I think we need to level the playing field, which is what the Zambia Center of Inter-Party would achieve, to level the playing field, so that if you are a political party that doesn't have representation in parliament, representation in local government, your voice can still be heard. You will still appeal, and your contributions taken on board. You may have a better idea than even those with representation both in parliament and at local government level. You know, it's an institution that needs the political will of the ruling party. Without that political will, it's a non-starter.
You were a minister, you were a member of the Patriotic Front, you were in government. You handled criticism of both your government and even yourself. What is your reflection of this government? They've been in office 2.5 years. Where do you think they are going wrong? Where are they taking this country?
I think it's not rocket science to have noted that this government is insincere. Most of the discussions that they have are based on untruths. You know, I'm trying to be polite here.
You are a politician.
Well,
leave the politeness to me, the diplomat.
The former diplomat. Maybe that's the aspect of me that's coming out.
You know,
there's too much insincerity. You know, you can't keep on telling people things that are not true. So the first one is there are too many lies that are being, you know, peddled by this.
The cholera outbreak is part of it.
It's part of it.
Because they thought the numbers would go away. They really suppressed discussing it, and they thought they could quietly deal with that. So the insincerity is just not on not telling the truth, but also acting out those untruths.
Yes, and the things that you can prove that this is not true. You know, the spokesperson, when he speaks, you can even tell his facial expression, his body language, that he doesn't believe what he is saying, you know. And I think Zambians are not dull. They know their rights, they know what is right, and they know how things should be done. So that's the first thing. This government is ruling on untruths, on lies, you know, a number of lies. Secondly, this government is too self-centered, you know. Everything is not about the Zambian people, it's about the political party, UPND.
And its survival.
Yes, you cannot rule, you know, as a small institution. We're dealing with a population of 20 million plus. I read somewhere in the paper that 20 million NRCs are going to be digitalized. What does that mean? 20 million people include babies, underage people. So what NRCs are you talking about? You know, it's very disheartening that everything is centered around the political party instead of the country. When you become leaders of everyone. You know, you are a minister of all Zambians, not a minister
of the UPND.
You are a president of all Zambians. No wonder when we were, the ruling party as Patriotic Front, we took development to all the parts of Zambia, all of them. Talk about the hospitals, it was all of them. Talk about boarding schools, it was all of them. Universities, it was all of them.
I was shocked at Minister of Finance, Honorable Dr. Stumbeko Msokotwane, when he announced that on the loans that they're getting from World Bank, there's a loan for $120 million, or is it 120 schools that will be built?
Yes.
And he says this will be built in Western Province and Copper Belt. And he says because your government excluded these provinces. Is that true?
That is not true. I think Honorable Wanchinga as minister there and Honorable Mavumba as Minister of General Education outlined the 220 schools that were built or going to be built by the Patriotic Front, and the areas where they were going to be built. Like I said, we were not segregating that.
I was permanent secretary in Western Province, and there were 3 schools that I visited. One in Skongo, brand new, beautiful boarding school in a far-flung area on the borderline with Angola. The other one in a technical school in Sesheke, and the other one in Kaoma. There are these 3 schools, brand new, beautiful, big schools, secondary schools that were built in Western Province.
Yes, exactly. So in terms of region, provinces, all provinces were catered for, and for that's what I said, that there are too many untruths, too many, facts that are, incorrect. Because if you go to facts, PF can produce those facts without even writing them. Just people looking at the school is fact enough to say the PF built this.
This government believes the regions were being discriminated.
That's not true.
When President Hakainde Hichilema came in office, he claimed that Southern Province was only receiving 3 bags of fertilizer. And he diverted fertilizer worth $50 million.
Yeah, but to a region that's prone to drought, isn't that a waste? Look at what's happening now. How much production is there in that region?
But is it true that we discriminated them?
There's no truth in that. However, when DMMU did a report, we're talking about disasters and emergencies, it was proved that certain areas, including in Luapula Province and Northern Province, areas that were prone to excessive flooding, it's a waste. You plant all that maize or whatever it is, and then it's destroyed. So you have to be strategic in the way that you distribute your fertilizer. Certainly, it's not all areas of Southern Province that are problematic. Western Province, Northwestern Province. So you deal with the situation based on fact, on data that has been, collected, on assessments that have been done. And if you choose to pick on one area and say, this didn't happen because it's Western Province, you're being unfair. You're being unnecessarily regional, tribal, whatever the term is. And, the UPND also like to feel that they're the best thing that has happened to the country. The opposite is true. I think they're the worst thing that has happened to the country because of the way they're acting out their policies.
Speak to that briefly. You're categorizing them as the worst government that has happened to our country. Why?
Well, I'll start with, first of all, the agriculture policy. Having come from the Patriotic Front who distributed, agriculture inputs on time, they were the exact opposite. They distribute their inputs late, and not only do they, distribute them late, the quantities are insufficient. It's coming out of the mouths of the recipients. It's the recipients who are complaining to say there's no seriousness in addressing the food security issue. The maize marketing. There's big talk about Zambia National Service being used to grow maize. Who put up the infrastructure for that? It's the Patriotic Front, but they will never mention that the
milling plants were set up by
the Patriotic Front for us to use. they talk about issues of recruiting public servants, teachers, police. Who set up the infrastructure for nurses and doctors to be, employed, schools, teachers to be employed? I mean, when you are governing for the country, not for a political party.
Again, the president was in Luapula last month, and he commissioned one palace for a chief, and he said he was commissioning this for the first time. I was extremely shocked. I thought that was a program, under Chief's Affairs, that was done for all our 287 chiefs, that they will have palaces.
It is.
And but he relaunched a full program on it, something that has been running, and some chiefs' palaces are actually complete.
And you'll notice where the concentration of those chief palaces that UPND is doing are from western, northwestern, and southern provinces. When PF was doing it, it was across the country. So it's unfortunate, and I think the president would do well to listen to the ordinary citizen. Criticism isn't always about doing the wrong thing. It can also be advice for you to pay attention to areas where people are complaining about, for you to be able to do better than you are doing.
You paint a grim picture.
Yeah.
I think the high cost of living for our people,
Extremely so.
the lack of opportunities for our people, and the economy is biting. What do you see for 2024?
For 2024, we are hoping that it will be a year of economic activities for most of us who fear that if you have 20 PIN in your account, it will be frozen and you will not be able to do anything. The increase in the cost of living, cost of goods, cost of essential commodities, cost of housing, cost of transportation, movement of people and goods. It's just too high. It's not sustainable. So I'm hoping that this government will be lenient on people who do business. This is just too expensive. You cannot survive. First of all, there's very limited access to capital or operation capital as companies in whatever sector.
Yeah.
Be it in hospitality, the electricity is expensive, the water is expensive, whatever you can think of. There isn't any sector that has been spared. And then you start taxing. The other day I was having a conversation with my son about this new law of taxing mobile service providers, every transaction that you do.
On mobile money transaction.
Mobile money transactions.
Especially person to person.
Yes. I'm not too sure whether if you have 10,000 in your account and you send to 10 different people, each person will be paying.
Yeah.
That's like taxing a single source 10 times. Is that fair? I don't know how it works, but if that's how it's working, then that is extremely unfair.
It's person-to-person transaction.
Very, very
so
unfair.
So if there are separate 10 transactions, you pay the fees for 10 separate.
Effectively, what that does is to encourage people to withdraw once and pay that fee, and then just deal in cash. And when you're dealing in cash, it's very difficult for you to collect the data to know how people are spending their money and, how much money is in circulation, So, I think the UPND are a party that is not sensitive to the plight of ordinary, citizens. They are going for the perceived people that they think are corrupt. How? How are they corrupt?
And they favor foreigners, foreign entities, and multinationals, and they're very hard on local businesses and local people.
Yes. Are they going to say that anybody who is in the mining sector is not corrupt? Only the person in the market is corrupt? A person who has 2 flats or 10 flats? I mean, why can't you use your money for the investment that you best think will give you the best returns? If you have money, you have access to a loan, you build flats. why should that be termed proceeds of crime? Why? You know, and if you look at the incumbent leaders, what properties do they have?
Yeah.
You know, if we want to now, I know that the president is not declaring his assets. It's law that he should, or,
yes, it is.
You know, it's law that he should, you know, public office bearers should declare their assets. I believe that even the members of parliament in the ruling party over-declared, probably to you know, prepare for eventual exit.
And say, but I said,
but
I have a 5 million kwacha plot.
That's just my view, you know. That's just my view. And if these people were in opposition for so long, and then suddenly they have acquired whatever properties they have, how did they acquire those properties?
Yes.
You know,
no, in fact, what you are saying is there should be, the application of the law should be fair.
It should be fair.
It should never target the opposition or to cripple the opposition.
Yes.
Law enforcement agencies should not be weaponized to destroy the opposition or political opponents.
Yeah. This
Honorable
is,
Chalikosa,
sorry, before you end the program, this is the other issue that makes them the worst government. It's application of justice. It's just not there. There is no justice being applied. I can speak for my political party as the Patriotic Front, and they can term it as internal wrangles. But where you have the state police intervention, the judicial system intervention, the National Assembly intervention,
the registrar,
you know, all that is just pointing to, you know, the government, the executive, having a hand in every other arm of government. And yet there's supposed to be separation of powers.
No, they are destroying internal democracies.
Justice
and our
in Zambia
democracy
is not attainable at the moment.
You know, the damage that is being done will last a long time. It will take a lot of work to build our democracy. People don't see the erosion to the independence of the institution and the harm that it is doing.
In fact, we should write books to just document just how unjust this government
has been. No, typical our politician, Mwambo Kulanda Palast. I have to bring you back once again. Honorable Chalikosa, thank you very much for joining us on the conversation, and thank you for giving us your insights. I think your reflection over the cholera outbreak were very helpful. This government must just go to the books, must even consult people like you and Dr. Chitalo Chilufya on the handling of this crisis, just to save lives. Sometimes you swallow your egos and your pride. To our viewers, will be back with another conversation. I was privileged to host former minister in the office of the Vice President, Honorable Sylvia Chalikosa. Wambala Chalikosa. What does that mean, Wambala?
Wambala, it's a name, but if you want to translate it, it means Vantendeka.
Ah, Wambala.
Wambala.
Oh, Wambala. Oh, yeah, it makes sense. So she's Sylvia Wambala
Chalikosa. I have all these funny names, but
very good name.
They don't match my character, actually.
No, they do. They do. You are soft and hard.
Am I? Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much. And to our dear viewers, watch the match today, and we wish Zambia well. We wish that our country wins. You know, we want the pride of 2012 back. So we'll be putting our support to Zambia, and that Zambia should excel. Good day, and we'll speak to you later.